Welcome to our podcast, The Words That Make Us.
Consider this time with us as your excuse to take a break from everything.
Every episode, we choose a word that makes us think, wonder, or dream. We read a range of texts that explore different aspects of this word.
And we let our thoughts wander. We hope that yours will too. So grab your favourite tea.
Or a beer.
And join me, Rama Shah.
And me, Tony Bailey. Let's go!
So today's episode is about change. Tony, how are you doing?
I have got my hands full.
Yeah, you don't seem too happy today.
I've got so much to do. It's flipping Jamboard technology thing that I use in the classroom. Good old Google have decided they're not going to support it anymore. So the 400 lessons that I've got from maths, I've got to change everything for next year.
400 lessons you did?
400 lessons. They've all got to be moved and changed. And I didn't want to use Jamboard even, but I had to do that and change everything to that. And now I've got to change again to something else that I don't even know what it is yet.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm not happy.
Yeah,
but I'm glad to be here with you, Rama.
That's very good.
Doing this podcast instead of having to even think about that.
Yes, I'm glad you get a bit of a break from that. That sounds really, that sounds like a lot of work is awaiting you.
Yes.
I wish I could help you, but you know, maths is not my
you don't have to be good at maths, honestly. Which is quite opposite, though. It's quite good that I'm in this kind of frazzle to do with this technology, because today's episode is all about change. And there's kind of like an image, isn't there, that especially in the workplace, that people do not like change. Are you a fan of change generally? So
I think you should guess by my response to your predicament.
Yeah.
What my attitude to change is.
Yes.
Because when Jamboard was introduced, I was this rebel that I am, and I said, I don't think I need Jamboard. I'm not going to change my lessons into Jamboard, which if anybody from management is listening to me, don't hate me. I'm usually a very good employee.
Well, no, Jamboard is
it wasn't mandatory. It was
not
just
mandatory and doesn't suit everybody's teaching.
Exactly. And so I decided to
and it wasn't management's fault. I mean, Google decided not to support it anymore, so I can't really blame anybody.
Them. Exactly.
It's just a change that I wasn't planning for.
Yes, and I am really, really sorry about that. When they said that that Jamboard was not going to be offered anymore, I was like, oh no, thinking of people like you and like other people that I know that invested so much time and effort into implementing this new change.
Yeah. And I suppose the only upside is it gives me something to talk about in this podcast.
Yeah.
And also in my business lessons, we talk a lot about change in the context of business. So it's given me a really good case study to share with the kids all the time.
Good.
The case study of myself and my own experience and reasons for resistance to change.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in general, you don't strike me as somebody who's
stuck in
resistant.
Their ways.
I mean, if a change is a good one or a sensible one, then you generally embrace it, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. I do like change when it's necessary. I don't like this idea of change for the sake of change. I feel like some institutions and some people actually who are very, very hardworking, or maybe they just identify with being this busy person, which I don't. I don't identify myself with that kind of image. I feel like they change things just for the sake of staying busy.
Yes.
And I don't necessarily agree with that. I think like reinventing the wheel is not what change in essence is actually about.
Yes. So you think that if you're in management, you justify your existence by being seen to do things.
Yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't really matter if that impacts other people and they have to change things. At least you've justified.
And not just management. There are people who do this to themselves. Like they feel that the more they have to do, and the more they flip their units around, and the more they change everything, that's more noble. Or more, honorable. But I feel like sometimes sticking to what's tried and tested, at the risk of sounding like an old lady, but it works. I mean, I really do believe in this thing where they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yes. It's a real paradox about human beings, this. Because I agree with you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there's a certain comfort in doing things in the tried and tested manner. And, in terms of your life, it's nice for things to be constant and not changing, and everything's calm. But then on the other hand, the phrase change is as good as a rest. In other words, making changes can be just as good for you as taking a break or having a holiday. And as human beings, we absolutely thrive on change.
Yeah, we need it. Absolutely, we need it. I mean, I am not saying that change is not good. In fact, I am a person who's really up for change when it's useful, when it's necessary. Like, for example, I don't just rest and say, this is the status quo, I'm just going to be happy with the status quo. No, I constantly change things. You might even say that I'm a restless person. I need new things to be happening in my life for me to feel happy. I don't necessarily feel like I should be discontent.
Yeah.
Is that the opposite of content?
Yeah.
Yeah, to feel like, okay, there's a balance to strike between being content and between changing your life for the better, I think.
Do you think the change that you embrace because it's been initiated by you, whereas the change that is stressful is stress that you've had no say in? So for example, as human beings, we like to think that we're in control.
Yeah.
So we change aspects of our life, whether that's changing the wallpaper, changing where we live, change our partner, change our job. And if we do that on our terms, there's a real sense of fulfillment.
Empowerment, yeah.
Whereas, like in the work setting just talked about, I don't have a problem with using new technology. I enjoy it in my own,
life
at home. Buying a new app or a new piece of software for music is exciting. But when I haven't had any say in it, I don't have any choice, and it impacts me without me
having done anything
volunteering
wrong.
or wanting to, then that's frustrating.
Yes, I get that. Of course I get that. And I mean, in a way, change, even if it's like sometimes I find it's too soon, too much too soon, it can be useful. It means like there's new blood, metaphorically. There's new things happening, keeps people on their toes, keeps things changing. Because just like a pond, if it's stagnant, then things start to grow on the top, and people become complacent.
You do meet people from time to time, and nothing is moving in their life.
Yeah, exactly.
And they become, you can see that lack of inertia.
Yeah.
People grow old more at a more rapid rate, and people become less interesting when they're not.
Absolutely less interesting, and also very rigid. Not just less interesting, but also less fun to be around, because you're like, anytime you suggest something new, an activity or a thing, or even a food, a restaurant, they're like, no. Let's stick with what we know. What's wrong with potatoes and rice, Like, oh, come on, you've got to change. I'm a firm believer in trying new things.
We've just sort of contrasted between change you choose for yourself and then sort of the change in the workplace. But there's also just the massive impact of the whole world around you. The human being's ability to cope with change that's been imposed on them from around them, just from society. So whether it's the change in the economy, think about COVID, the changes that had on people.
Oh, goodness.
Political change, war breaks out, and people cope with the changes brought on by those terrible circumstances. We talked about grief a few weeks ago. Changes in your life as a result of these sort of events, it is incredible how the human copes with change.
Yeah, I mean, we do cope, but I must say that something like COVID, that change, because it happened so fast. I was really depressed that time. It was really, really tough for me. I'm sure it was tough for many, many people, but for somebody who loves being around people and going out of the house, and I also need my routine. If I don't go out of the house and do my thing, then I don't have a routine. I might just wake up in the morning and not change out of my pajamas, you know? So I found that very, very hard. And I didn't get used to it. Like, I could not wait for us to come back to
But
work.
then as a result of COVID and the change in people's life that kind of imposed, people have changed. So
For the better?
I think some things are better. I think people have, at least I think people have become a little bit more aware of work-life balance and of their own well-being. I think, I'd like to think anyway, that people took a time out to look at themselves and to look at their own health and well-being and their mental health. And I sense in the workplace, people talk about it more.
Yeah.
And people are more,
Mindful.
there's more empathy about kind of mental issues, mental health issues than there was before, because I think everybody went through something during that time.
Yeah.
What do you think the causes of resistance to change are? Why are people so resistant to this change that's imposed from external sources?
So I'm sure you did some research on science.
That's why I asked the question. Exactly.
I can read your mind now.
Yeah, no change there then. Yes.
No, I'm guessing it's because it forces us to leave our comfort zone, and comfort zone is there for a reason. It's because it's comfortable, and so any kind of change kind of threatens our sense of security, and it's like, oh my God, I'm going now to be pushed into doing something that I've not done before. I might be seen as a fraud, you know.
A sort of fear. I mean, because in a way, you could counter that by saying, for a lot of people, being given something outside of your comfort zone is an endorsement of your ability and how highly you're thought of, and some people want to be pushed into areas that they haven't experienced before. So
what was your finding here?
So let's do a bit of business management theory, shall we? I love a lot of business management theory is interesting because it also cuts across into just normal life, because the same psychological drivers that lead people in the workplace are the same as they do in their own lives anyway. But good old Kotter and Schlesinger, both business people, business gurus at Harvard Business School in the 70s. They produced a number of different pieces of work all about resistance to change in the work setting. And in their analysis, they highlighted kind of 4 key reasons why people resist change. And it's quite interesting because I was teaching my class about Kotter and Schlesinger, and I could use my Jamboard example with all of these potential reasons why people resist change. So firstly, people are driven, because we're human beings, we're driven by our own self-interest. So if you believe that you're going to be worse off,
why would you want to do that?
Why would you want to endorse a change? So why would I want to endorse a replacement to Jamboard if it means I've got to do 400 replacements? Of course you wouldn't do that. Of course I'm going to be resistant to change. However good I am and however helpful I am. I'm not going to be saying, oh goody. Second is fear and misunderstanding, kind of what you said before. If people do not trust the motives of the people who are driving the change, they'll be resistant to it. So again, even with Jamboard, you could say, oh, well, this is just the first step. It's just the first step to replacing me. Or it's the first step towards an environment where we have to do X, Y, or Z. So like you said, I didn't go with Jamboard. Maybe that's a very wise decision because this was the first step. I don't know. Third step, which I think is also really important, is just a different perception or assessment of what's going on. So I understand the reason for the change for Jamboard, but I might not agree with it. Or my understanding of the reason for the change might not be the correct one. So I might think, it's just another example of the technology team telling me what I've got to do when that's not how it should be,
Yeah.
Actually, that's not the reality. The reality is Google are stopping supporting it, so we have to change it.
It dangled a shiny tool in front of us and then took it away.
Absolutely. But in a work setting, people are always
looking for someone to blame or to work. Yeah.
And I think when you look at COVID, this is the reason why there were so many conspiracy theories.
Yes.
Because there's all this change happening. There must be somebody up to something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Fourth reason, people just prefer things as they are.
Yeah.
People don't like change, especially in the workplace where this is the routine part of your life. So many jobs. I mean, my job, I'd be quite happy to just stays exactly the same for the next 5 years, and then I'll go and sit on a beach. I don't want to keep having to develop and change and reinvent the wheel in this particular aspect of my life.
Yeah.
I'm not resistant to change elsewhere, but in particular settings, some people just want things. I work in a shop. That's all I want to do. I don't want to go on a management training course. I don't want to start using new systems or whatever. So that's what Kotter and Schlesinger said. And I can kind of
agree.
See that.
Yeah, I see it completely as well. And I think also in terms of the change, I think sometimes when you find like your tools have been honed and they're sharp and they're very good and they're working and they're yielding great results, you'd rather now go and focus maybe on other things, on the relationships with the students or on the marking, or on, let's focus on the other things that I'm going to find better results in rather than reinventing something that I should not be worrying about right now. I think that's what it is like,
But just look at, just to counter that, because I agree with you, and especially teachers. Teachers are great at complaining.
Yeah.
Teachers of any workforce that I've been part of are unique in their ability to find something to complain about at all times.
I was going to say, speak for yourself, Mr. Bailey, and then I was like, oh, shut up, you complain too.
I do, I can't complain all the time. But, it doesn't matter whether it's report writing or parents or the behaviour, there's always something that we don't like. But counter that with, just look at, during your lifespan, at the change you've experienced.
Huge.
I mean, look at the technology change that we've seen.
Yeah.
Look at the changes we've seen in people's values and beliefs systems.
Absolutely.
Political change, changes in equality or inequality.
Yeah. But even in weather, like with global warming.
Absolutely, yeah.
You grew up with a climate that was temperate and all of a sudden it's extremely hot or extremely cold and you're like, what is this? I don't recognize this world anymore.
Population change.
Yeah, population change.
In my lifetime, from 2.5 billion, the forecast around the age that I would probably expect to die, the world's population will be close to 10 billion.
It's incredible.
That's
almost
times the size.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. And yet, so you can't possibly expect to be in an environment or a world where things don't change. You have to change. And you change with aging as well.
We talked about
that. I mean, there's no way I could live the life that I lived when I was 20.
Yeah. I mean, you could, but it would be actually a bit ridiculous.
I think people think it a bit creepy as well. Yeah,
exactly. I was going to say, actually, one of the movies that I really like is a Hugh Grant movie. It's called 9 Months. Have you seen it?
Not a big fan of Hugh Grant, as we've discussed before. No, I haven't seen 9 Months, no.
So anyway, it's about a guy who he's very happy with his life. He has his sports car, he has, his single life, and then he meets a lady, Julianne Moore. Yeah. And then she surprises him by saying, look, I'm pregnant. And he's like, what does that mean? Now I have to kind of uproot my whole life, sell the sports car and stuff. So he decides to leave her and she's like, okay, then I'm going to have the baby on my own. And it's just very interesting how this guy then realizes slowly that this change is actually a good thing. Yep. This baby is going to come and not ruin my life. Yes, I'm going to have to sell the sports car. Yes, I might not be able to travel all the time. Yes, I might not be able to go and party every night. But this is a nice change. It fits where I am in my life right now, you can't live the bachelor life your whole life.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you should not. I think it would be ridiculous if you lived like a 20-year-old.
My son's just had his first child.
Yeah.
And so, again, just looking at him and his wife and their little baby, and you think about the enormous changes this suddenly makes to them, to their status now as parents. Their responsibilities have changed. I have this little baby, what they can and can't do with their life, with their money, their plans for their future.
They have to change their house, baby-proof everything. Like, everything changes, and it's a great change, like, in general, all changes are part of, the journey that we are on, and it's cool. We just embrace it.
Evolution, isn't it?
Yes, exactly, as well. That's true. Yeah.
I think of it a bit like, the old fight or flight thing. Response. In a way, you could describe our attitude towards change a bit like that, fight or flight.
Yeah.
We either resist it and run away from it, so we flee, or we fight it. In other words, we embrace it, we take it on.
We fight through it, exactly.
We're not aggressive towards it, but, Hugh Grant decided to flee.
Yeah.
Whereas my son, thankfully, has decided to fight and embrace it. But maybe that's part of our evolutionary success is the way that we've been able to
sustain our species. I found an interesting kind of reminds me of this. It's a Rupi Kaur.
We've read Rupi before.
Yeah, I really like her. This poem is called Journey. And it's talking about how people worry when they're going through a change that maybe their life is, being ruined or something is going like, oh my, what's happening here? It says, there's nothing wrong with you. This is growth. This is transformation, protecting yourself, getting lost in the noise, figuring it out, feeling used, uncared for, losing hope, burning out. This is fear. This is processing. This is surviving. This is being alive.
And I love that. That's really good.
It's very apt, isn't it? For how, we worry about change. We feel like, it's going to ruin who I am as a person, but it's not.
Well, there's something, the word implies something new. Whereas actually the reality is change. Life is change. It's always change. Every moment is about change because, if we look at good old stoicism, our favourite sort of philosophy, stoicism says it's about how you react to the changes, not that it's inevitable. Change is inevitable.
It's the only constant is change.
You continually have to address the changes that are there in front of you. Your success isn't forecasting them; it's how you react to them. And just acknowledging that you don't have complete control over the changes that are going to happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
I actually have a poem about that.
Okay, good. Did you find it easy to find literature about change?
Not very easy. No, I thought there would be a lot.
Topic, isn't it?
Yeah, I really was surprised because I thought it was going to be easier to find something about change. Like, this is a topic that all influencers and speakers and people would be talking about it. I thought there would be a lot of literature about it, but not much. But I found something that was really interesting by the Austrian poet Rilke. He's very highly regarded in the German literature culture.
You're not going to read it in German, are you?
Doch.
Warum nicht?
Natürlich. No, I'll read it in English.
Good.
It's called The Man Watching by Rainer Maria Rilke. And let's see if you understand it the same way I understood it, because it's not directly about change, but there was something really interesting about it. So here goes. I can tell by the way the trees beat after so many dull days on my worried window panes that a storm is coming, and I hear the far-off fields say things I can't bear without a friend, I can't love without a sister. The storm, the shifter of shapes, drives on across the woods and across time, and the world looks as if it had no age. The landscape, like a line in the psalm book, is seriousness and weight and eternity. What we choose to fight is so tiny. What fights us is so great. If only we would let ourselves be dominated, as things do, by some immense storm, we would become strong too, and not need names. When we win, it's with small things, and the triumph itself makes us small. What is extraordinary and eternal does not want to be bent by us. I mean the angel who appeared to the wrestlers of the Old Testament. When the wrestler's sinews grew long like metal strings, he felt them under his fingers like chords of deep music. Whoever was beaten by this angel, who often simply declined the fight, went away proud and strengthened and great from that harsh hand that kneaded him as if to change his shape. Winning does not tempt that man. This is how he grows, by being defeated decisively by constantly greater beings.
Yeah.
What did you understand from that? How do you think it relates to change?
So, first of all, I liked it. I like the imagery. I love the bit about the wrestler's sinews, like metal strings. I thought that was a little bit stoic.
Yeah, there is something.
In that it's saying, the greater pattern around us. We are so small and inconsequential that we put in so much effort to try and win a fight against something that is just so much bigger than we really are. That why are we doing that? Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
We would gain greater strength and greater pleasure from just going with, kind of like saying go with the flow, isn't it, really? And I think that is really good, sound advice.
Exactly. I think when he says the storm, I can feel it coming. That's big change coming, and it's going to take you by storm. It's going to change something, and if you just resist it, like you said, resisting change will not get you anywhere. But if you embrace let it change you.
Yeah, so much more stressful, and we already talked about being angry about. I mean, why am I angry about? It's only Jamboard.
Yeah,
not a big deal. But no, I think in especially as a human being, if you put things into perspective, like I can't remember what I was listening to that was saying that 95% of the animal species that have lived on this planet are extinct. And the time span that the human race has actually been on the planet is very, very small. Compared to the
other
other life forms and the total duration that this planet has been in existence. We are not as big and as influential and as special as we like to think we are, either collectively as a species or individually as a human being.
Even less.
So the idea that all the dinosaurs wiped out because a large meteor hit the Earth. This will be the same for the human race.
Yeah.
If that happens, we will be defeated decisively by constantly greater beings. So maybe there is a reason why we should remain somewhat humble and accept that we're not quite as special as we think.
And there's not much we can do in the face of change. I think that's really something that we have to, sometimes we resist so much because we think we have so much control, but actually the most sound advice I've ever had is let go, just letting go. And I find that so hard because that's also Stoic, and as you know, I have nothing to do with Stoicism.
Yeah.
And so it's like just letting go and waiting for things to come to you and just embracing.
Let it go. Oh, that sounds like a song.
Where have I heard that before?
My favourite.
No, but it's...
Again, my counter to two observations. One is, I love that feeling when there is some freak weather. When there's a massive snowstorm.
Oh, yeah.
And you wake up and you look out the window and it's like, oh my God.
What happened overnight?
What happened? Or there's a thunderstorm. And
I love thunderstorms.
Huge, and you realise just how small we are in the scheme of things. It shows you the power of the universe around us. So it kind of backs up what it says in that poem. But my counter to the poem is, I resent the large-scale change that is because of other human beings.
For example?
If you look at, I don't know, just look at the way that our society has changed in the last 20 years because of the internet. Look at what social media, we've talked about this regularly, look at what social media has done to community, to social connection. It's had major changes on the way people interact with each other. And there are so many people doing bad things that I do, in those circumstances, I do think, I would like to intervene.
Yeah. So what would you do? What would you change?
I think rather like that the poem says there, you do get to a point where you realise you can't. You can fight it from an ethical point of view in your head, and you can fight it through argument, but you're not going to stop it. It is a bit like King Canute. There is a tide that will just keep coming. We're not, we've had discussions about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
It's just coming, and maybe the right tactic is just to embrace it. And
you have to go with the flow, like for our podcast, we
could be replaced, couldn't we?
Oh,
we could
totally.
have
just somebody can be Tony and somebody can be Rama, and they just talk at each other.
Get some chat bots in.
But also in terms of social media, there is no other way for a podcast like this, which I really hope there's some value in it, to get to people without social media. So I have had to post it on my Facebook. We've made this Instagram page for it, which is not doing too well, but you have to embrace what's around you, because otherwise if you say no, I am going to cross my arms here and pout and I'm not joining this, because some of it is ridiculous, really. Some of this, what's happening on social media is ridiculous, but you have to go with the flow. You have to embrace it. There's no other way around it.
Again, I guess maybe that's just a feature of change in society, change in humanity, that you have to take the rough with the smooth.
Exactly. For a while, at least. I think what's going to happen now, and I read an article about this the other day. They said that the Gen Z, the ones who are younger than us, they are now the ones who are embracing apps like I can't remember what they're called, but they control how much time you spend on social media. They are now, when they go out, they put their phones away. They are better at managing social media and phones than we are. Maybe not you, but other people. And it's really interesting. So first, change will come, the bad with the good, and then I think we can maybe separate the chaff from the wheat, and say, okay, I'm going to take only what's good and reject what's bad, but that takes time.
I think you're right. My knowledge of that generation, I think my two children, they're far more enlightened about the quality of the life that they lead, the quality of the food that they eat, the way that they travel, far better than I ever was, and probably ever will be.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's all because of social media and the internet and stuff. So I just think we have to accept that it's a bit not great at the moment because of all this disadvantages, but at some point we will only take the advantages.
I hope so. I don't like how society has evolved in the last 20 years. But I think that might be a symptom of my age, because most people of my age have that same view. I don't think every generation believes that its generation was the best.
Always, back in my day.
The music was best in my day. The music's terrible now. Television and films were great in the 70s. Actually,
there are some amazing movies coming out. So I think there are some great things happening. I think, but one thing that we have noticed as teachers is that the attention span of children these days has definitely decreased.
Sorry, what did you say? No, I think that's right. Absolutely right. But then maybe we should embrace that. And I heard, actually, at the weekend, I was talking to a friend of mine. She works at the Hamburg International School. Do you know what they have decided? They're changing the schedule to make the lessons shorter. No lesson is to go above 60 minutes. Wow.
Whereas here we have 75 minute lessons. And they're saying the kids can't handle it. We're going to change the whole schedule because we have to cater for these new children who have
It does seem a little bit ridiculous, though, that the whole school, the timetable, the way that holidays are sorted out, is all based around the day when children used to work on farms.
Yeah.
So the holidays were long in the summer because the kids were needed for the harvest.
Yeah.
And they were based around major religious festivals that people don't celebrate anymore. So you could look at that and say, actually,
This needs to change.
everything needs to change. And if our life now is based around technology and knowledge being out there, it's not as essential to have the knowledge. It's essential to be able to find the knowledge and know that that knowledge that you're finding is either relevant or reliable.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a different skill set that people need for the future.
Yeah.
I often think about that with, teaching of maths, that a lot of what we teach is probably not required for people's future life.
And they know that. The kids know that. They always say, why am I learning
Yeah.
this? This is not going to help me in the future.
Whereas there's a lot of conceptual stuff
Yeah.
that we don't spend enough time on. There's too much formulaic stuff that we
Yes.
spend time on.
Which a computer
where-
can do in seconds.
Yeah, I don't need, my calculator will work this out, or my, software will do this. Great software for drawing graphs or for modeling things. So the important thing is that kid could look at that and understand it and understand what it means and what it implies. But you don't have enough time to teach that stuff, which is the really important stuff, because we're still training people to do exams like they did in the 1950s and 60s.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Do you think that new teaching styles or new syllabi, like you're saying, new things, would require fewer teachers? Do you think that one day soon we will be dispensable?
I'd love to say no, but here's what I think. I think the research showed that during COVID, when kids were at home and doing a lot of remote learning, actually their academic results improved.
Improved?
Yes.
No.
Yeah, American colleges. That's what was.
Okay, but not schools.
I think yes, because children were not.
Wasting time going to school and coming back to school.
Well, there was that, but also people were able to concentrate more on their own than with other kids around them.
That's not what I read, Tony. Really, honestly, I read research that said that the literacy levels, every level has gone down because of the students who were in grades 1 and 2 and 3 during the pandemic can barely read and write now. They're not doing too well.
Maybe it depends on what level. I was thinking about college level, graduates or undergraduate level, and I do think at that level, where you're not in the school so much for the social skills and things
you've already
for the
had
academic
those.
progress.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, if I was studying for a degree now, I would not feel the need to go to some academic institution and be in a large room with lots of other people.
Yeah.
I think I would do much better studying remotely on my own.
But don't you need a facilitator to explain things, to encourage you, to show you? I don't know.
For certain things, yes.
Yeah.
I think so. There's a large growth in distance learning as a way of people learning.
Yeah, I think that's one of the results of the pandemic, is that in a lot of universities and workplaces, remote work.
And it makes a lot of sense in terms of reducing travel, good for the environment, etc. But in answer to your question, I think it's useful for children to have adult role models. So even if what they're doing changes slightly, then I still think there's a job for teachers. I mean, you look at what we do already and how that, back to change. Compare the role of teacher now to the role of teacher when we first joined the profession. Mm-hmm. There's a whole load of stuff that was added to my roles and responsibilities that I never signed off for.
Like what?
I think we play much more of a pastoral role than we ever.
Really? It wasn't like
did.
that before? Okay.
Not really. And, there's a lot more almost parenting of the students involved.
I love that part.
I do like it, but it's a feature that has increased more and more.
Mm. Why do you think that is? Is it because the parents are now both working?
Yeah, I think parenting has changed. I think a lot of parents have less time for their children. I don't think children have as much community at home to fall back on. So teachers provide adults, contact that perhaps that they don't get outside of school, maybe.
Is it because people now maybe are having 1 or 2 children instead of 4 or 5, that like they used to as well?
Could be, and you don't have grandma or granddad looking after the kids or being in their company.
Also the sense of community, you used to have a neighbourhood, people used to play outside on the street, and you don't have that so much anymore.
Yeah, I think students are much more likely now to confide in a teacher as to things that are happening to them or about how they feel than ever in the past, because teachers are there and available. And,
interesting.
There aren't that many adults in children's lives who have that kind of trusted status and have a listening ear. So
wow. I never thought about that.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Shall we read something else?
Yes.
Shall I get? We did touch on stoicism, didn't we?
Yes.
And so in linking with the poem that you read, let's see what Marcus Aurelius. I've got a few quotes from him, but I quite like them. Main quote: "Is any man afraid of change? ? What can take place without change? What then is more pleasing or more suitable to the universal nature? And can you take a hot bath unless the wood for the fire undergoes a change? And can you be nourished unless the food undergoes a change? And can anything else that is useful be accomplished without change? Do you not see then that for yourself also to change is just the same and equally necessary for the universal nature?" I love that. It's
That's
like,
awesome.
If you say I'm not willing to change, then you're kind of, you're basically saying I'm not part of the universal nature, because everything changes. Another quote: "Observe always that everything is the result of change, and get used to thinking that there is nothing nature loves so well as to change existing forms and make new ones like them."
Cool.
So yeah, loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. So I love that, and I think that's one place where the Stoic approach to change is a good one.
It's a good one, yeah.
Embrace it.
I think in general, they say embrace things, don't resist too much, don't get involved too much emotionally, so yeah, in some respects, I think it's great. It's also like what I said before, what I lack is letting go, and just like embracing what comes over you.
I think in a previous episode we talked about where Stoics, I think you used the example of where somebody was given a certain amount of money and the neighbour was given twice as much or something. Yeah. Stoics would say, don't
worry what they get.
about things that you cannot influence or change.
Yeah, exactly.
Only worry about the things that impact you.
And even there, don't worry too much, just try to embrace it, acknowledge it, let it go, and make the best of what we have.
Yeah.
So speaking of nature, like what you just read, especially the first quote that you wrote, I found a nice poem that I think is nice, in my opinion. It's called The Arrival of Spring. It's by RG Gregory.
Mm-hmm.
"On the last day of winter, I went to bed, harsh winds, rainstorms beating my head. Houses, trees with a sucked out look, New Year flaked from the old one's hook. Then overnight, such a change of heart, Spring come home with her confectionery cart. Hundreds and thousands strewn in the breeze, houses sampling them as well as the trees. People savouring them in punts on the river, earth knee-deep in them praising the giver. So blankets off, I'm out in the streets, gluttoned for spring and her burst back of sweets."
That's beautiful. I would love to say this is so appropriate since spring is here.
Yeah.
But it was snowing earlier this week.
Goodness me, I can't
so
believe it.
not so much confetti and sprinkles, or what is it?
Confectionaries.
Confectionaries, yeah.
we're both sitting here dressed in wool, and it's like the end of April. So
blankets on.
But we can exactly blankets on. But we can dream, can't we? We can at least anticipate.
But I think it's again completely relevant to what we were saying in that earlier reading of yours about the bigger picture. We constantly live through these cycles of change.
Yeah.
So spring is coming, and we all stand back and admire it, and we look at the blossom and the beauty of spring, and that appreciation of that change is built. It's kind of like a built-in mechanism. We
Absolutely.
wait for it, and then I can't wait for the sun to start beating down and to get into my t-shirt and shorts, and the arrival of summer, and then change will happen again, and the weather will,
My sister's like that. I have one sister in particular who loves change. She just as soon as she sees a bit of sun coming out, she puts her winter clothes away, takes out her spring clothes, and she can't wait for spring to come. And then when autumn starts, poking its head, oh my goodness, the leaves are turning, it's so. She loves these new things happening, and it's really exciting.
Could you imagine living in a part of the world where the temperature and everything's just the same all the time?
See, I remember talking to someone from New Zealand, a friend of mine. I was just saying to him, I said, I wish I could live in a place where it's constantly 25 degrees, not too hot, not too cold, just live by the sea, same weather all year. And he was like, well, that's New Zealand. And I think Christchurch, he said, but it's not good. That's why we're here in Europe, because we want to experience, the different seasons and now actually thinking about it, yes, it's right. I mean, that would be so boring, living somewhere where it's always constantly the same.
I think we're very lucky that where we live, that the seasons are just the right lengths.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd hate to live in one of these countries where the winter just goes on and on and on and on, and then you only have a very short summer and then you're back to winter.
Although
but on the
winter
other hand,
here is too long.
It feels a bit long at the moment. We're into April and it's snowing still, but in general...
yeah.
I mean, we've had situations where it's been sitting on the beach in March, but I quite like I like the seasons. I like that cyclical nature. There's this, I like the kind of rebirth thing.
Yes. Yeah.
I like the the spring and the time to. I like the idea of spring cleaning. I like that. It's a time to
How much do you
refresh
charge
and
an hour?
For you,
because I hate
too expensive. No, but I think it's part of human nature, isn't it, to be able to. So much of our routine, we look forward to particular times of the year. Yeah, it's kind of that nature's change imposed upon us, but I do like it. Yeah.
Here's a poem for you.
Go on, then.
I found it. It's called "Change" by Wendy Vidlock. It says, "Change is the new, improved word for God. Lovely enough to raise a song or implicate a sea of wrongs. Mighty enough, like other gods, to shelter, bring together and estrange us. Please, God, we seem to say, change us."
Gosh, I'd never thought about it like that. That's quite profound, isn't it?
Yeah, God is the new change, and we strive for change. We always want to be better, right? But sometimes we just don't see that for us to be better, we have to embrace changes in things that we do and routines that we go through. We just want to.
And if you think about that large life force that you're talking about before, that we just got to acknowledge that's God's power too. So God and change. Yeah. So the Bible.
Yeah. What does the Bible say?
I think there's a lot in the Bible about change, but I kind of pulled out two themes. One is about embracing change and to embrace change in the light of God, right? So with regard to your former way of life, to put off your old self and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. This is from Ephesians. Or, truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. So there's a whole range of messages about people needing to change their ways, basically, and become, God's children.
Okay, but what does that mean, like to enter like children? Like to be innocent, to be clean, free of sin?
Yeah, this is kind of an ongoing, image.
Okay.
All of us
This
are
metaphor,
God's
like an extended metaphor.
children. Yeah.
I see.
So embrace God, put on and become a new self. So that's one part about change, is about yourself. To embrace the scriptures and become like God's children. And then the other thing about change, another theme, is about God not changing. So the unchanging Father. So every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. So like a warm blanket, all the time God is there, never changing.
Never changes, yeah.
God's enduring nature. In the beginning you laid the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you remain. They will all wear out like a garment. Like clothing, you will change them, and they will be discarded. But you remain the same, and your years will never end. So, in other words, the fleeting nature of the world, but the unchanging nature of God. So two sort of strands that I found.
That is very
in
interesting.
quotes.
That second strand is also present in the Quran, is that he will always be there. He will never change, and that's the constant. That is actually quite reassuring. It's like no matter what happens in the world, all that chaos, all that change that happens, he will be constant. You can always go to him, you can always pray. I quite like that, and I like that this is the same maybe across all religions. That he's reliable, he will be there without any change.
Well, I like that. I mean, it's comforting.
It is, yeah. It's like a parent being there for you, knowing that they will not flake on you.
In amongst all of this change that we are experiencing, there is one thing that is constant. And actually, we talked about little children, but yeah, you're absolutely right, isn't it?
Yeah.
You hope that one of the major constants in your life is your parents are being there for you. So there's similar sort of imagery.
Like the eye of the storm, somewhere in there that is constant, and you are twirling around, but they're there to anchor you somehow.
Yeah.
I really like that. I didn't even think about that in the Quran, but now, of course, this reminds me. In the Quran, I found this quote, and that's a quote that people use all the time in speech and stuff. It says, Allah does not change people until they change themselves.
Yes.
I love that.
That's true.
I really like this one because it's like, don't just sit there and pray for change. Don't say, please make me a better person. You've got to go out and do it. Like the Obama quote that you said, like we are the change. We have to change ourselves for things to change. And I like that.
Well, I think that, we talked about people hating change. And often that's used as an excuse, isn't it? We'll never get anything done here because everybody hates change. Well, actually, that's not true. People don't hate change. They hate change when they don't want to do things that you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
So you need to take responsibility and change the way that you are interacting with people so that they are more positive about that. If you're a leader in an organisation, back to businesses, you can't blame people for being resistant to change because it's absolutely normal.
Yeah. And of course they will.
You can make them non-resistant to change by addressing the fears
doing it the right way.
Issues that they might have.
So true.
You can't blame people. It's Tony's fault that he's unhappy about Jamboard. No, it's not my fault. It's not really about whose fault it is, but the issue is what can you do
understand
to help me through my fears so that I'm less resistant or annoyed about change.
I'm glad you brought that up because I found something, even though business is not my domain. I'm sorry that I kind of went into your...
It's everybody's domain.
And I found this really cool theory about change. It's by a physicist, actually. His name is Lewin.
He's not a physicist.
He's a physicist and something else.
He was... Kurt Lewin's another one of the business people that we...
He's a businessman and I looked him up. And anyway, he says that he has a theory that I found really, really interesting.
Are you going to talk about freezing and unfreezing?
Yes.
Go on. Yeah, excellent.
I really like
that.
Excellent. It says there are 3 stages to change in an institution. It's unfreeze, change, refreeze.
Yes.
So in this article that I found, it says something like, what if you had a block of ice that was the shape of a circle and you wanted to make it a cone or a triangle? You'll have to melt it, shape it again, and then refreeze it, and then you would have what you want.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting and very true. I think that's how I love the analogy of, unfreezing, changing, refreezing. But in this article that we will put in the show notes, it's talking about how do you implement change. Yeah. And they're saying that what's really important is that leaders in any institution, like you said, address the fears of the people who are worried about the change, take time for it to be implemented, and also be very consequent in the way that they implement that change. If you say, now we have to all use Outlook, for example, and then sometimes you get a message from them on, I don't know, by whatever it is, chats or something. Okay, then this change is not going to work because you are not setting
modeling the behavior that you expect.
Exactly, people. And I found that very interesting, and it's
and also, if I remember Kurt Lewin's stuff, that was kind of a precursor, Kurt Lewin, to the Kotter and Schlesinger stuff we talked about, and subsequent business management theory kind of built on the Kurt Lewin stuff. But if you look at the science equivalent, you talked about freezing, etc. And what you can also read into that analogy is where the energy is required. So to unfreeze something requires energy. So you as an organization or as a management team, in order to unfreeze behavior to create change, you have to put the work in. That's where your effort should lie, to unfreeze it. And then you're going through the
shaping,
the solution, the dissolution to the solution. Yeah. It's ice to water or whatever. Yeah. And then to freeze it again requires energy too. So there is a physics or chemistry equivalent or analogy to it.
And it's like actually I read the book Atomic Habits. I think you told me about it too. Yeah. And so it was only now I'm making this connection. It's true, because that's what he says. For you to have a new habit, you have to replace an old habit. Yeah. So, for example, if you say that I want to wake up at 5 a.m. to get my work done, you have to first of all, you have to say, how can I not wake up at 7 a.m? Yeah. How can I change that habit? And then slowly replace it with another habit. Because
and this whole thing about habits is really relevant to the idea of change. Yeah. Because any habits that we've got become ingrained in our behavior and the way we do things. And they're there to make us more efficient. We don't have to use any energy with habits because there's no brain processing that goes into doing things.
Exactly.
They're just automatically programmed. And that's why we're resistant to change, because it requires
effort. It's going to take effort, exactly.
So if you think about, changing a particular habit, like using social media, it requires you to actively do something that requires some sort of neural processing to fight against the habit. Yeah. It's not the straight,
To say, I would like to go to the gym more often.
Yeah, and do it.
Exactly, and say, okay, then I'm going to limit my social media consumption to, 10 minutes at night or half an hour at night, which frees my afternoon then. Yeah. Then I can go to the gym. Or actually, something else about the atomic habits that he mentioned that I really liked. It's very simple, but it's so powerful. Make it easy. To embrace a new habit, So for me, to be able to go to the gym regularly, I make sure that my stuff, I have separate stuff for the gym, separate shoes, separate everything. They never leave the gym bag. So I don't have to scramble every time and say, okay, I forgot my shoes, I forgot this.
There's always provides a good excuse for not doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything stays there. I have my headphones, they never leave my bag. I maybe have separate headphones for other things, but these things for the gym make it so easy for me. I just grab my bag and go. Yeah.
So if you take that the message of that book and put it, say, in the workplace, and the stuff we were talking about with change here. So teachers are very much creatures of habit. Yeah. They have a timetable. Yeah. Everything is down to the minute. Yeah. So the minute you throw something new into the works, like an additional duty here or another thing that we've got to do with the reports, you are destroying the teacher's habits. And that creates resistance to change. Back to, Kotter and Schlesinger, because we are outside of our comfort zone, the habit, and it requires additional thought that
And
we didn't have
effort.
to do. Or
Like the
effort.
energy you said.
You know, speaking to somebody who works in a school in the German state system, her curriculum has not changed in the last 15 years. So her material for teaching science is exactly the same.
Wow.
Whereas I'm teaching IB, and every 5 years there's a new specification out. So the habits, if you want to call them habits, what I teach, what order I teach them in, all my materials, every 5 years I'm having to
Which is really good. It sounds annoying at first, but actually it makes you rethink what you're doing and what's useful and what's not.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's good, but I can see where, you know, what I do has become a habit, and I have to pull myself kind of reluctantly away from, oh God, I have to teach, I've got to change that, really? But what was wrong with it? You know, it was easy before. So, interesting. Who said leopard spots never change? Is that the quote? The leopard does not change his spots. And do you agree with that?
That's a great question.
A leopard does not change his spots.
I really like that because it's implying that people don't change, right? Like you can never make people change. If you take like the Friends, a cheater is always a cheater.
Yeah,
that is what Rachel's mother told her.
Well, exactly. So it's twofold. It's one is that you can try and change yourself, but you won't. The true essence of you stays the same.
Yeah.
Or you cannot change somebody else.
Yeah.
Because they will stay the same no matter what you.
So I think those two things that you said, the first one is absolutely not true because we can change. I am definitely not the same person I was even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I've changed so much and it's all conscious change and I'm very happy. But the second one is absolutely true. Unfortunately, you cannot change anyone if they don't want to change themselves.
Absolutely.
And you can try as hard as you want, but they will not change until they believe that the change is good for them. But back to your question, who I think said that, can you give me kind of like a hint? Is it modern? Is it somebody like who's alive?
I'll give you another quote.
By the same person?
By the same person.
Okay.
Old fashions please me best. I'm not so nice to change true rules for odd inventions.
Wow. I really like the first one better about, like, that's such an apt analogy of the leopard spots. Is it a politician?
No.
Is it an artist?
No, you're going to be surprised because the leopard does not change his spots. You think that sounds quite contemporary, but
I was gonna say Kipling actually, like somebody who wrote these old parables about animals and stuff.
No, good shout, but no, Shakespeare. Shakespeare, and both of those quotes indicate the fact that Shakespeare didn't believe that change was necessarily a good thing. Or that was possible. The leopard does not change his spots. You cannot change a bad person, or you cannot change their habits.
So don't expect anything new from someone.
Yeah. And then old fashions please me best. I'm quite happy doing things the old way. I'm not so nice to change true rules for odd inventions. So that's something I could quote to my technology colleagues, couldn't I? Old fashions please me best. I'm not so nice to change true rules for odd inventions.
Bring back the blackboard and the chalk.
Bring me chalk. Yeah, so
I like that.
Interesting. Yeah,
but it's funny because kind of I think it takes away the credit from people if you say, don't even ask Tony to change because he won't change his habits and he won't lose his spots. I find that very, pessimistic. Like people don't change, they're not willing, they're not able to change who they are. That's not true.
I think you can influence people, but I don't think you can make the change.
I think you can influence them, over long periods of time.
I hope so.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we do as a job.
That's our job, yeah.
But it is true. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I hate when somebody says, the leopard will never lose its spots or change the spots, because it's like, then what are we doing here as teachers? If we get somebody who's lazy or reluctant to learn or something, and we say, that's never going to change anyway, but why? What are we doing here? Then what am I being paid for?
Oh, and back to what we're saying about in the workspace, our role as a teacher, we could say the student, they're never going to change.
Yeah.
well, in that case, we're not doing our job very well, are
Exactly.
We need to try and
Exactly.
find a way to tap into something that enables change. Good quote.
Yeah.
Growth is painful. Change is painful. But nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong.
Oh, wow.
I think that's a really... I wish I'd read that quote
Earlier?
5 years ago, 10 years ago. I think we underestimate the pain in staying still sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, I think we've had a discussion before about people who stay in relationships that are
Not good for
painful
them.
and not good for them.
Yeah.
Because they believe that the change would be more painful.
And it's usually not true. You
Not
get over
true.
it. But that first bit of the quote, what was it again? Change?
Growth is painful. Change is painful.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Because actually I read an article about it the other day. Not an article, just like a quick information piece. It's about butterflies and how they change from being a caterpillar to a butterfly.
Yeah.
Apparently this change is extremely painful when they grow bigger and bigger in this chrysalis and they are like, they don't fit anymore and it's really painful for them.
Yeah.
And then they kind of break free and they become a beautiful butterfly. It's a very painful process, but it pays off in the end. I think sometimes if you just have to embrace it, and like if it just falls, then
How
it's
do we
dead.
know that they go through pain? How do they?
That's
find
what
out?
scientists say. Don't quote me, but that's what they said in that piece.
Gosh.
So, but it makes sense, you know. You have to go. Sometimes you feel like gold. If you don't put it through the fire and make something nice out of it, it's really like, what can you do with a tiny nugget of gold? Really nothing.
Yeah.
But when you put it through the fire, that pain, you know, and you change it slightly, then you can make something really beautiful out of it.
I don't think everybody in their life is on a constant journey of change, and most people, if you were to ask them, would be in the process of trying to change something about themselves.
Absolutely.
Or trying to change something about their life. So that's why it strikes me as strange that people should either be worried about change or scared of change or resistant to change, because we're dealing with it all the time.
I think it's what you said. It's the fear of the unknown, you know, because it could be, and this is not far-fetched or impossible, could be that what's coming is worse than what we've had. You know, sometimes they do say be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Because what you wish for might be really bad for you. You might be wishing for, today we were reading in class about the lottery curse.
Yeah.
You know, like you wish for it. And then we read about people who got murdered, who killed themselves, who, you know, so it's like change.
There's a lot of fun in your lessons then.
Yeah, the kids were like, their eyes were so wide, they're like, oh. Yeah, but it's like change can be scary because it can result in being worse rather than better. Actually, it reminds me of a little poem by Rumi, which I was not going to read today because I was like, this is not going to be relevant. But lo and behold,
we've got there.
It fits what we are saying. It says, who makes these changes? Who makes these changes? I shoot an arrow right, it lands left. I ride after a deer and find myself chased by a hog. I plot to get what I want and end up in prison. I dig pits to trap others and fall in. I should be suspicious of what I want.
Yes.
So it's really be careful what you wish for.
Absolutely. But again, there is that paradox that we talked about right at the beginning. On the one hand, we long for change and we quest change and we embrace change. On the other hand, we want things to stay the same.
Exactly.
And then that phrase, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
We assume that it's going to be better if we do change, where actually we would have been better just continue to do what we were doing before.
I think sometimes it just has to be like, what's your gut feeling saying? You know?
Yeah.
If I don't change, am I going to be losing out on so much in life? And then you just jump into the fire and deal with it.
Is there any change that you made in your life consciously that you then regretted afterwards? That you thought, no, that was the wrong move, I shouldn't have done that?
I wish you'd asked me that yesterday so I would have thought about it.
It's better to spring you by surprise,
Oh,
see what
goodness
comes
me.
out.
a change. So not an action, but a change of habit or something.
Yeah, something that you
something
actively
I've-
decided you needed to change.
I can't think of anything. Can you?
I've had a few changes of job where I believed that
They would be better for you.
this
but
is
they-
better for me either because the opportunities are better, or the environment's better, or the responsibility's better, or the pay's better. And then I've moved and actually realised that I was a lot happier doing what I was doing before. Why did I do this? Very much for the reason that you change for change's sake,
Yes.
or change because you believe that's going to solve a problem, when actually the problem that needs to be solved
It's something else.
is something else.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
something within you that
I think
needs to be
that's
addressed.
Often a human failing is that
Yeah.
we believe that it'll be all right if our relationship's on the rocks, let's get married. That's often the case. When people are dating, they've been going out with each other
Let's
for a
have
long
a child.
time.
This will fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's get a dog.
Yeah.
Like, what's that got to do with your relationship? You need to sort out your relationship.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. I've got a good poem.
Can we end with your poem then?
Yeah, I like this because this is kind of consistent with a lot of the things that we've talked about during this podcast, about how small we are in the scheme of things, I guess. But this is a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, American poet, late 1800s, I guess. The Song of the Potter. Let's do it. Turn, turn, my wheel, turn round and round, without a pause, without a sound. So spins the flying world away. This clay, well mixed with marl and sand, follows the motion of my hand. For some must follow, and some command, though all are made of clay. Turn, turn, my wheel, all things must change, to something new, to something strange. Nothing that is can pause or stay. The moon will wax, the moon will wane. The mist and cloud will turn to rain. The rain to mist and cloud again. Tomorrow be today. Turn, turn, my wheel, all life is brief. What now is bud will soon be leaf. What now is leaf will soon decay. The wind blows east, the wind blows west. The blue eggs in the robin's nest will soon have wings and beak and breast, and flutter and fly away. Turn, turn, my wheel, this earthen jar, a touch can make, a touch can mar. And shall it to the potter say, what makest thou? Thou hast no hand? As men who think to understand a world by their creator planned, who wiser is than they? Turn, turn, my wheel, 'tis nature's plan, the child should grow into the man grow wrinkled, old and grey, this bit's about me. In youth, the heart exults and sings, the pulses leap, the feet have wings. In age, the cricket chirps and brings the harvest home of day. Turn, turn, my wheel, the human race of every tongue, of every place, Caucasian, Coptic, or Malay, all that inhabit this great earth, whatever be their rank or worth, are kindred and allied by birth, and made of the same clay. Turn, turn, my wheel, what is begun at daybreak must at dark be done. Tomorrow will be another day. Tomorrow the hot furnace flame will search the heart and try the frame, and stamp with honour or with shame these vessels made of clay. Stop, stop, my wheel. Too soon, the noon will be the afternoon. Too soon today be yesterday. Behind us in our path we cast the broken potsherds of the past, and all are ground to dust at last, and trodden into clay.
Oh, this is fantastic.
I love that poem. When I found that poem, I thought, yeah, that's the story of life, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I love how it changes. After turn, turn, my wheel, it says in the last stanza, stop, stop, my wheel. Too soon,
Yes.
too soon.
I was thinking about when I was reading it, which verse am I on in my life? And it was like, yeah, I'm well past about verse 5 or 6. I'm getting quite close to the stop verse. Yeah, but yes, there we go. We are just dust.
We are.
We are just dust. Are we not just dust?
Absolutely. Okay, I think this is a great place to stop.
Very good. You're only saying that because I threatened to talk about mathematics and calculus as the
Yes.
mathematics of change.
A little bit.
Or maybe we'd do another podcast just on calculus.
I'll be sick that day.
Okay, that was really good, and I enjoyed that. We'll do it again.
Very good. Next week. We can't wait.
No change.
No change.
We'll
we stay
keep
the
going.
same. Yes, exactly.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay.
See you guys
until then,
next week.
Bye.
Bye.
We hope that you've enjoyed listening to the readings we chose for you today.
And that our musings have ignited your thoughts.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and those you think would enjoy it.
If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or any kind of feedback, please send us an email using the email in the show notes.
We'd love to hear from you with the words that make you.